I hate to say it, but really, what did he expect? This is one of those cases where it's better to beg for forgiveness than ask for permission. My name is Andrei Mincov. I'm the founder of Trademark Factory. And in this video, I'm going to share my thoughts about yet another trademarking screw-up. This time around, it's Disney denying a request of a father whose son died and who wanted to place an image of a Spider-Man on his dead son's tombstone. All right, let me read it from the article, and then you can always find the link in the description below. Disney denies father's request to add Spider-Man to son's gravestone, stirs controversy. Last December, Lloyd Jones, 36, of Kent, England, lost his 4-year-old son, Ollie, to a rare genetic disorder called leukodystrophy, which affects the brain and spinal cord. The little boy's favorite superhero was Spider-Man, and the family's last trip together had been to see him at Disneyland. It only made sense that the family wanted to place an etching of the beloved character on Ollie's gravestone as a way of honoring his memory. But when Lloyd's brother, Jason Jones, reached out to the Walt Disney Company for permission, they said no on the grounds of copyright infringement. I was emailing Marvel for months before someone who applied, or probably replied, gave me the right email for Disney. Jason told Best Life when reached by phone. I still have the original reply, which was a refusal. All right, so little note here. So he was going back and forth with Marvel for months, which means there was quite a bit of a period, a pause between the death of Ollie and the final decision about the image. So here's the original reply. Dear Mr. Jones, please extend our sincere condolences to the Jones family on the heartbreaking loss of your nephew. If we played a small part in his happiness, we are honored. Generations of fans have responded to our characters with the same wonder and delight that your nephew did. In fact, many believe the characters to be real. We have striven to preserve the same innocence and magic surrounding our characters that brought him such joy. For that reason, we follow a policy that began with Walt Disney himself that does not permit the use of characters on headstones, cemetery, or other memorial markers or funeral urns. Although we cannot grant the family's request, we would be pleased to commemorate your nephew with a hand-inked, hand-painted, personalized cell that recognizes his love for Spider-Man, and which will read, for your nephew's name, thank you for letting us share in the magic of your life. Your friends at the Walt Disney Company. Please confirm if the family would like to receive the commemorative cell, and if so, provide the family's home information, your nephew's name, and reply back to this email. We feel privileged to have had him as a fan. In the email, Disney representative expressed sincere condolences to the family for the heartbreaking loss. It said they could not grant the family request due to policy. Well, yeah, basically what I already read. So they offered the offer to commemorate the little boy with a hand-inked, and regardless, the Joneses took the rejection hard. Ever since Ollie died, my brother's life has been crazy, Jason said. Ollie was severely disabled, and Lloyd was always having to take him to different appointments and specialists. It was his whole life. When Ollie died, it killed him. When I told him Disney had said no, he was dumbstruck. He didn't think there was any possibility they would say no. I'd understand if they didn't want to license out their characters to be on the side of a truck selling something, but for a child's grave, Ever since the story began receiving attention over the weekend, some fans had been slamming Disney for their decision to deny a request. One fan even started a Change.org petition urging the Walt Disney Company to make an exception to their policy and grant the family their wish. At the time of publication, it had more than 900 signatures. We just thought it would get the headstone and that would be that, Jason said. Lloyd is happy that the story is getting attention. Well, I'm afraid that's really what this whole thing is about, but I'm going to get to that in a moment. But we never expected it. You said to me, everyone's seen Ollie's face now. No one is ever going to forget him. It's just broken his heart. Right, so first of all, let's go through what happened. Disney is a lot less concerned with the image of Spider-Man being found on a tombstone. Rather, their concern is being on record for allowing such use. Big difference. And which brings me back to the idea about begging for forgiveness versus asking for permission. That's the perfect illustration for where begging for forgiveness would have been a better choice, because it's a lot less likely that Disney would go after the father, after the brother, after the dead son for having placed Spider-Man on their tombstone, even if they somehow found out, unless of course you rubbed it in their face. But the likelihood of them suing the family for copyright infringement is just minimal. Instead, what they did is they spent months trying to secure permission, and if Disney had granted that permission, then basically they would have to change their entire policy, because everyone from there would say, well, you allowed this to happen, now you should allow that to happen as well, right? There could be all sorts of things, all sorts of uses. People die, people, get married, people do all sorts of things, and not all of it justifies a license from Disney, because in the end of the day, that's going to dilute the character, that's going to dilute the value of the brand. And so I can understand Disney really well. I understand why they said no. And really, if they wanted to commemorate the son, and look, as a parent, I understand there's probably nothing worse than to bury your own children. And I understand how horrible this whole thing is. But really, if Spider-Man was such a big influence, was such a big thing in Ollie's life, there's really other ways to commemorate that. You could place a figure next to, right? You could, bury one with him. There's just so many different ways. But if you wanted that to be on the tombstone necessarily, well, just do it and shut up, because then it's a private thing. And if it's a private thing, Disney would have not done anything. But you wanted to make it public in the end of the day. You went to the press. You wanted to make this a big deal. And Disney just can't afford. They just can't afford now to let it go. So basically, a situation was created when you can't win. And again, this wasn't impulsive. It took them months of back and forth. And during all these months, what was happening? There was no tombstone. What was there, right? So I hate to make assumptions, and I really hope that's not the case, because I really don't want to be too cynical about it. But I would say that it may even look like the whole thing was an attempt to get public attention more than it was to actually commemorate your son's life. That's all I gotta say. Like I said, Disney can't afford to give those licenses out, give those permissions publicly, because once they allow one person, everybody else will follow suit. And shortly, there'd be very little value in their licensing power, because if you can put it on a tombstone, what's the difference between that and having t-shirts? Very little. So anyway, it's it's a hard topic. It's a hard topic because, again, I can only imagine what the family went through. It's absolutely horrible. But really, what they're doing now is not helping anybody. It's not helping their son. It's not helping their own mental health. It's certainly not helping Disney, and it's not helping the public. So really, I wish none of this had happened, of course, and I'm sure Disney shares the same sentiment. But in the end of the day, you have to separate, the personal feelings and the value of the brand that's going to outlive all of us. So yeah, and on that said note, I just gotta say that we'll see, of course, where this goes. I'm sure it's not going to go anywhere, and Disney is going to stand strong and say that's our policy. Walt Disney had this policy, and we're going to continue having this policy, and there's nothing we can do. Of course, there's going to be people signing, there's going to be people saying bad things about Disney, but I'm sure that Disney has calculated this, and it's not going to get out of hand anyway. So that's my 2 cents about it. Again, my condolences to the family, my respect to Disney for standing strong in protecting their assets. So if you didn't know, I post videos about trademarks and intellectual property and brands and entrepreneurship every single day. If that's something that interests you, make sure you subscribe. And if you got a brand that you want to protect, make sure you go to trademarkfactory.com and book your free call with our strategy advisors. And until then, I will see you in the next video.